Good morning, welcome to my channel. My name is David Okun and I'm talking about the cost of living. Thank you everybody who have been helping me to support this channel and to watch the video, leaving a comment and clicking a notification bell and supporting this program in whatever way you have been able to do so. And I've been speaking about the cost of living crisis, which is global, in different ways, in terms of regions, in terms of government policy and practices, and in terms of possible availability of help from the government, and also to look at different contexts of the cost of living. Basically, what I've been saying all along is that the cause of the cost of living is actually capitalism, which is actually the system of the economy, which is global, which is a system of the marketized mode of doing the economy systematically, but also in terms of processing. It is part of what I refer to as the developmental factor of progress, which includes generating wealth and also using the wealth to do research, technology, and producing engineering product and facilities, and doing all sorts of things as we understand it within the commercial, within the economic, environmental, legal, in whatever way, political, and all aspects of society, and including within the social welfare system. If you live in a country, in a particular country, you look at the social welfare system. The social welfare system is actually a program, government program, which is actually operated under the public sector within the policy and also institutions. Actually, at the capital level, the public sector actually operates to provide public service and also infrastructure, however you look at it. Now, what has happened and what is continuing to happen at the moment is that the public sector is being closed down by governments within the West and within the developed world generally, within the West and the East, and in Africa as well, because there is something called privatization, which is involved privatizing the economy, the capitals, and the wealth. Capital simply means wealth, which is actually accumulation of wealth, really. Wealth being accumulated, this capital, and the system is called capitalism, of the means of really focusing on using wealth to support the economy and other aspects surrounding the economy, like security, national security, food security, healthcare, education, research, and all those elements. Now, the reason why the cost of living becomes a crisis is when government fail to deliver on the welfare system, whether in Africa or in the developed world or anywhere else. So the reason I'm actually talking about it, so that people know what is really happening. Because normally people can find out about the cost of living from news, from documentary, but I feel when I talk about it the way I'm talking about it, I'm able to identify things which the authorities may not. And I've also argued that if you want to solve your problems or any problem at all, you have to know the causes, and having an awareness about the problem will help you solve the problem. And solving problem is fundamental in a society where the government and every sector of the cultural systems are actually reminding us citizens of the world to take responsibility for our lives. While I'm talking about Africa now, it is mindful, we are minded to experience a situation in Africa where literally people have to fend for themselves. in my opinion, that is not right, because in Africa, including what I now refer to as East Africa, and Uganda, which I'm now talking about, because I spoke about Africa, East Africa in the other video. Today I will be talking about Uganda, and maybe if I have fans coming from maybe Kenya, Tanzania, or any other country requesting me to talk about their country, if they feel this kind of information, sharing this information is important, then I can talk about their country as well. But now, today I will be talking about Uganda. I spoke about Africa and East Africa in the other videos. If you watch the other videos, I talk about the United Kingdom as well. Look, if you have time, because I know the most valuable asset is time and resources. Also, if you are in Africa, you may not have data. There is a problem with data. Even in developed countries like where I live, and even the United Kingdom, in Britain, is a problem with data. Different individuals experience different challenges differently. So I understand if people in Africa and other parts of the world where the internet is really a major issue. I understand if they don't really watch videos all the times, but they are also doing other things. So I understand that. But by nature, our channel is still small. It hasn't grown enough. There is a work in progress in that context. But it's my focus now to continue recording videos and getting as much help as I can from other people to try and improve the process of videoing and improving the quality in different ways. I'm still talking about the cost of living, but in the future I will start doing other things. I've really enjoyed the challenges associated with talking about the cost of living. I've been mainly talk about government policy and the law, and sometimes these things get extremely complicated even for me to talk about it, but it has been a major challenge, and I'm really enjoying the challenge, and I will continue to do it facing the same challenges in terms of understanding and delivery of the videoing and the topics, and hopefully people will begin to pick up the pace and more interest. And I know YouTube is mainly about entertainment. My channel is still raw. Entertainment is quite limited. Actually, it's next to nothing. If you're going to watch these videos, value it in other ways in terms of why the cost of living is extremely important. The cost of living is happening now, and it's a symptom of things to come. It is not just the cost of living crisis, but also it's part of the wider issue with our society. If you believe you can take responsibility beyond maybe entertainment, cooking, maybe doing other holidays and things, if you feel you can take responsibility to try and understand the societal issue and policy and political issue and maybe legal issue, then this information is for you. But if you are also facing the cost of living crisis, then it is an opportunity to learn the reason why the cost of living is there, why it is going to continue to be there, why you should actually prepare yourself in terms of if you're in poverty, you need to try to get out of poverty and learn how to get out of poverty. If you can do a business in Africa and perhaps in Uganda as well, if you are actually in poverty, which most people, actually about 95% of the population are in poverty, there are actually quite few people who are actually super rich in Africa. They are multi-billionaires and multi-billionaires. Uganda, if you come to Uganda, which I'm talking about today, I'm talking about Uganda today. Uganda, there are so many rich people, but the rumors I hear about Uganda, it's rumors, remember, but it could be true, because the president of Uganda, President Yoweri Museveni, who have actually been in power for over 30 years, I think it's now approaching 40 years, since 1986. If you calculate that 86, 96, 10 years, 2006, 20 years, 2016, 30 years, you know, it's about 36 years now, approaching 40 years in power. And we are talking about African leaders and African continent, African countries is practicing democracy. It appears to me that regular election of also continuity and changing of the government is part of democracy. But my idea of democracy is a bit different. So whether Uganda is a democracy or not is not something I'm really concerned about at the moment, because I believe there are a lot of challenges facing even democracy within the developed world, such as in Europe and America, and where the idea and practices of democracy originated. The value of democracy is that it brings freedom. And I would say if we are democratic, then we shouldn't have the cost of living crisis. That is the argument. And I would invite viewers to think about this, because sometimes it is easy to accept the idea of democracy piecemeal, but you need to question people, even Americans or Europeans, perhaps other parts of the world, which actually advocate democracy. If this is democracy, then there should be freedom. There cannot be freedom if 90% or more, even people of the world, languishes in poverty. And that's why in my illustration, if you see the rest of my videos, I say this video, whether I'm talking about Africa or Uganda or another country, the information I'm providing is actually applying to, it's applicable to other parts of the world. And this is in part because of the system of the global system of economy and politics, security, and other factors. What happens in one country happens in another. And so we need to pay attention to these problems. And when we look at Uganda, for example, and seeing, how long the president has been in power, because every time there is an election, you find the same man, Mr. Museveni, Mr. Yoweri Museveni, His Excellency, God bless him, he gets elected all the years. I mean, if you compare Uganda with Kenya, next door to us, at least there is changes, a sense of continuity and change in Kenya. Although suffice it to say, perhaps, that Ugandan history has been full of violence. In as much as President Museveni has overstayed in power, which is what he himself coming into power actually promised he would not do. But now he's actually doing it. And if you ask him, why are you still in power? Why are you staying so long? His answer is the same, that the Ugandan people want him to be in power. Yes, I mean to say, Ugandan people want him to be in power, but why do you want to be in power? And the same answer, the Ugandan people want me to be. What do you want to do? Why don't you get out and rest and retire and let other people do and replace you so that it looks good on your book? The people of Uganda need me. When Museveni dies, because everybody dies. I'm not praying for the president of Uganda to die, but if in case he dies of old age, because like I said, everybody dies because of old age. Ultimately, it doesn't matter who you are. We haven't found any medicine to solve the problem of aging. So our dear president of Uganda, is going to die of old age sooner or later. So he is not telling us what Ugandans are going to do if he's no longer there. Maybe his shadow, his ghost, is going to remain in Uganda to rule Uganda, even if he's lying in his grave. I don't know. I wish I could really ask him. I think he will have an answer. Politicians will always have an answer. It doesn't matter how awkward the questions are. He will always find a way to answer the questions. But so if Museveni, because he is in power, he's staying for so long in power, because the people in Uganda want him. So what will the people in Uganda do if he's no longer there? if he has passed on, peacefully, I mean, if he's resting in peace. um, so that is a situation we have with countries like Uganda, and situations of leaders, you know, clinging to power, but there are may or may not be certain reasons. I mean, so many people want to be in power, even in the developed world, because power gives you a lot of things, advantages. There is, you enjoy it, ignore it, you make a lot of money. I mean, the rumor on the internet, if you type UN Museveni's net worth on the internet, or you Google it, you'll find that it's worth about 13 billion US dollars. And he has stayed for over 30 years, approaching 40 years. He came from having no money at all to, he wasn't wealthy. He had been fighting the Bush War in Uganda. He was in the guerrilla warfare and fighting what was the then government of the UPC, Uganda People's Congress of Milton Obote, in Uganda at that time, in the 80s. At that time, Mr. Museveni wasn't rich. So when someone asked him where he got the money from, I don't think he was asked, because he said he made his money by selling milk. I mean, if you're in Uganda, you're in Kenya, or in East Africa somewhere, I think if Mr. Museveni is correct, that he is a multi-billionaire, is worth in tens of billions of US dollars by selling milk, then why should we not start selling milk? Listen to the president and start selling milk. And also, at least we don't even need to be billionaires. All I want would be just a millionaire by selling milk. And there is a lot of milk in Uganda, because Uganda is described in many ways that it's the Pearl of Africa. Equator passes, Equator passes along Kenya, Uganda, the Congo, and North Brazil. These are the areas of the world with the most wealth. Yesterday, in the previous video, I talked about East Africa, and every time you talk about Africa, East Africa, you reference Kenya, Uganda, and the Congo, where the equator passes. That is actually known as the River Lake region, with fresh water, with the base of land, with the base of rainfall distributions. Almost anything you plant in Kenya, Uganda, and the Congo will grow, because the land is so fertile. The equator passes from there, and potentially it has also minerals and like petroleum oil. So Uganda should be one of the richest countries in the world, and you can actually open ranches, because there are lands, and even if you don't really own cows to produce milk, you can also buy maybe from Mr. Museveni and sell milk. I mean, you may be in US dollar maybe worth hundreds of thousands, or even or millions of US dollar selling milk. It may take you longer than Mr. Museveni. I mean, if you're a young person, why not? If you leave university, go and sell milk like His Excellency or President of Uganda sold milk to become a multi-billionaire in over 30 years. And also, his wife, the First Lady of Uganda, Janet Museveni, is worth about 700 million US dollars in a country which is actually ranked, I think, in terms of poverty, if I'm correct, I think it's in Uganda is number 25 in terms of world poverty. The poorest country on earth, it's number 5 in the ranking of poverty. That is really shameful. You have a country which in the 60s led in economic growth, and now is languishing. I'm not saying Mr. Museveni has been more of a problem than any other leader of the world. I appreciate his staying for a long time in power, because he produced some political stability, in the sense of because Uganda was suffering unnecessarily in my opinion. Especially under the Milton Obote UPC government. My criticism of Milton Obote's government was, the frequency of military coup, which created a lot of problems for Uganda. It created a lot of. I think Museveni solved that problem of the political instability. And but what Museveni did, contrary to Milton Obote, former president of Uganda, was that the best president in Uganda for managing the economy of Uganda was actually President Milton Obote, especially within the 60s, before he was overthrown by Idi Amin in 1971, because Africa was leading in economic growth. And Makere, Mulago Hospital were actually among the best in the world, and Africa was actually rising. But the story of Africa, even Kenya is now doing very well economically, one of the best, not just in Africa but in the world. And I'm really proud of Kenya and the rest of the country. I'm proud of my country, Uganda. It's a very beautiful country. It's described as the pearl of Africa. So in the future, if we can sort out the economy, especially the poverty discrepancy, then we will be okay. Now, countries like Kenya, without straying into Kenya is so highly developed economically, but what concerns me in Uganda and Kenya and maybe other parts of Africa is the discrepancy between the super rich and the very, very poor. There is so much poverty in Uganda, in East Africa, in Africa, and I think this is actually why the cost of living crisis has been so brutal in Uganda and in the rest of Africa, like I said in the other videos, and also in this one I'm repeating the point. And it is upon us Africans, but also members of the global community in other countries, to pay attention to the incident of poverty in Africa, because it's not good for the health of the globe, and in particular it's not good for the health of Uganda and Africa. And this is caused by capitalism. Like I said, in Uganda, the IMF, like in Africa, the IMF and the World Bank are financing most of the policies in Uganda, and then the condition for this funding is to restrict most of the investment in what is capital and infrastructural investment, as opposed to something called revenue, including schools, healthcare, education, employment, or welfare economy. These, if not done in Africa, Africa is going to really suffer. Not just Africa, but the rest of the world. If you check all my videos, because even the developed world is really going to get into a lot of trouble. The developed world was doing well when the welfare system, including employment and the other factors were, including healthcare, was happening effectively. But now the cost of living is evidence of the failure of the public sector to provide public services, especially the social welfare services like education, healthcare, and things like employment, because these are actually the source of the major. Employment is the major source of income everywhere, and also in the developed world, welfare benefits, which are actually given to people who need help, is the complementary to employment. In Africa, we don't have really welfare system, and the same in Uganda. Maybe we provide family welfare. When you go and live with your family members, you go and live with your neighbors. But that is easy said and done in the modern Africa, including in Uganda. So these are some of the things we need to think about when watching this video. And my purpose is actually to draw attention to the wider issue, to link it with the cost of living, so that we begin to examine what the future holds for Uganda and Africa and the rest of the world. And I would say, apart from development, we need to also examine our culture, our customs, which means our cultural education simply means valuing humanity more than wealth and other factors. We value wealth, we value other things, we value the environment, and we value money, businesses, you name it, we value it. That is within the developmental front. But within the cultural front, we need to set it as our fundamental priority to value humanity. I believe this is in Uganda and other parts of the world. This is actually a major tool to produce peace in Uganda and Africa and the rest of the world. And I'm now going to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed. And thank you to everybody who have been subscribing and continue supporting this channel. We are still small, and I'm faithful. I'm actually believing that we are going to grow as a channel, because everything which is YouTube, which is social media, will grow with time. Who knows? I mean, if I get help from here and there, the more help, with social media, you need really help to grow faster. Otherwise, I have to do things in a more conventional way and see how it goes. So my focus now to actually improve on the delivery of the material. Got a lot of video here with varying quality. We'll see how it goes. So let us look at this material to get a bit more systematic, looking at Uganda. And Uganda, its coordinates is actually 1 degree north and 32 degrees east. That is where it's located with reference to the globe. If you're looking for Uganda across the globe, those are the coordinates you will actually, maybe you can put it on the GPS, I don't know. But that's where this description actually allows you to locate Uganda on the globe. It is located at 1 degrees north and 32 degrees east. And Uganda is a republic. It's called, the full name of Uganda is actually the Republic of Uganda. In Swahili is called Jamhuri Uganda in Swahili. So official name in local languages also there. We have a flag, like most countries have. Literally every country in the world has a flag, and obviously Uganda also has a flag. And the flag is actually black, yellow, red, and black, yellow, red twice. There's a pattern, and there is a crescent crane and a portal, actually a circular portal in the middle of the flag. That's how to describe it. You can always look at this information. These are actually sources of national pride. If you are Ugandan, God bless Uganda. And we have coat of arms, which is actually an animal. I don't know what animal it is. On the one end, there's a shield. There are a couple of other things really. You have probably the river, also the sun. There is a drum. There are spears, and there is a crescent crane also. You can Google that and find out the coat of arms. The coat of arms is actually a shield to signify the authority that Uganda has as a country, as a sovereign country. We have our motto also, which is actually how we can praise Uganda, how we can exercise our national pride for God and my country. Kwa Mungu na nchi yangu, kwa Mungu na nchi yangu, for God and my country. So the national anthem is Uganda, the land of beauty. A beautiful country, like Africa, it's a beautiful continent, like the beauty of East Africa and the rest of Africa. The capital is at Kampala, which is the largest city, and the official language is English and Kiswahili. The religion of Uganda is composed of, this is 2024 census, is 84.4% are Christianity, and 39.3% are Catholicism. I would have thought Catholicism is actually a form of Christianity. The breakdown actually is 39.3% are Catholicism, 32% are Anglicanism, which means Uganda is predominantly a Catholic country, and this was created during the period of colonialism. mainly the French introduced Catholicism, and but ultimately Britain was the one which ultimately, colonized Uganda, and there was something called the Uganda Protectorate, and I think it's a similar situation in Kenya and Tanzania. And although Tanzania also had the influence of Germany, but we talk about Uganda today, 13.1% are other Christian, and 13.7% are Islam, 1.9% are other religion or land-based people. So there's something called the denonyms. That is the national identity, the naming of Uganda as a form of nationality. You are a form of kind of like signifying the immigration status of a Ugandan. It's called Ugandan. If your nationality is Uganda, then you are Ugandan, which is also your immigration status, which means you are allowed to stay in Uganda as a national of the country. The type of government we have in Uganda is a unitary, dominant party presidential republic. The president is, like I said before, Yoweri Museveni, and the vice president is Jessica Alupo. In the over 30 years Uganda existed, the only changes at the top has been the vice president, people like the Prime Minister Robina Nabanja, and the president have always remained the same. Leave a comment below if you think that is a very exciting thing. We talk about independence from the United Kingdom. Uganda was actually colonized by the United Kingdom, and the Dominion, it got independence as a Dominion from on the 9th of October 1962. We just had our independence recently, and we became a republic on the 9th, a year later, on the 9th of October 1962. When a country is a republic, it means it is not as connected to a monarchical system. And the current constitution we are using was enacted on the 8th of October 1995. During Museveni, when Museveni came into power, he changed the constitution of Uganda, in other words. So let us look at the area, how big or small Uganda is. Uganda, the total area is 241,038 square kilometers, and 93,065 square miles. It is numbers. Uganda is 79th in size. So it's a small country comparable to other African countries. The water size in Uganda is actually composed of the water mass in Uganda is actually 15.39%. And in 2023, this was estimated. The population was estimated in 2023 as standing at 47.729 million and 952,000, and it's the 31st most populous in the world. We have the density, a population density of 157.1 per square kilometer, and also 406.9 per square miles. That is the concentration of people in an area. Look at the wealth of the nation. GDP, PPP 2023, this year estimate a total of 145.157 billion US dollars. Is the 88th richest or poorest. I think the richest. We talk in terms of wealth. So in the world of Uganda, of Museveni, and the NRM is actually 88th in terms of wealth. Per capita is 3,222, which means an individual in Uganda, when they are paid, or their worth in terms of income is on average is $322 $3,222. It is number 172, 122nd in the world. It's one of the poorest countries in the world, actually. GDP nominal is in 2023 as it was estimated is actually 52.390 billion US dollar. The 90th per capita is 1,168, 196. In short, Uganda is a poor country. And the Guinea in 2016 is 42.0. HDI 2021 is 0.525. It is low. It's a low of 167. Currency: Uganda shillings. UGX time zone UTC +3 each East African time. A driving side, Uganda drive on the left hand side. I think it's the same with Kenya, maybe Tanzania also. Calling code is +256. ISO is 3166 code UG. Internet TLD.UG +006 from Kenya and Tanzania. So perhaps if you are phoning from Kenya or Tanzania, you dial +006 and leave a comment below if you are Kenyan or Tanzanian. And let me know what you think. Uganda, officially the Republic of Uganda, is a landlocked country in East Africa. So I'm going to go through this material with you and actually link this material to the cost of living consistently. Leave a comment below if you think. Let me know what you think. So the country is bordered to the east by Kenya, to the north by South Sudan, to the west by the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and to the southwest by Rwanda, and to the south by Tanzania. The southern part of the country includes a substantial portion of Lake Victoria shared with Kenya and Tanzania. Uganda is in the East African in the African Great Lakes region, which lies within the Nile Basin and has a varied but generally modified equatorial climate. So, like I said before, it's potentially Uganda is supposed to be the most. Actually, potentially Uganda should be the richest country in not only in Africa but also in the world, and that is probably a similar story across Africa and also in East Africa. As of 2023, has a population of around 49.6 million, of which 8.5 million live in the capital and largest city of Kampala. If you have been to Kampala, wherever you are in the world, please leave a comment below. Let me know your experience in Kampala. Uganda is named after the Uganda Kingdom, which encompasses a large portion of the south of the country, including the capital Kampala, and whose language Luganda is widely spoken throughout the country. So the people of Uganda actually, I think they form about over 40% of the population are actually the Baganda. Nearly half of the population are actually the Baganda. There are so many. And Uganda is named after the people of the nation of Buganda. Buganda was a kingdom. The Buganda Kingdom, when the British came in it around, when they made the 1900 Uganda Protectorate Agreement, Uganda was actually one of the most powerful kingdoms in Africa. And you can find the southern part of Africa, the south central part of what is now Uganda. But certainly I think it was at that time, and potentially still now, because the kingdom is still there. comparable to other kingdoms in Africa. I think it's still leading kingdom. Oh, however, this time the idea of the kingdom in Africa is symbolic. That includes Uganda. So from 1894, the area was ruled as a protectorate by the United Kingdom, which established administrative law across the territory. Uganda gained independence from the United Kingdom on the 9th of October 1962. The period since then has been marked by violent conflict, including an 8-year-long military dictatorship led by Idi Amin. Idi Amin was the commander of the army under the government of the UPC of Milton Obote, and because of many factors, he overthrew the government. For the first time, Uganda experienced a military coup. So we can talk about the other factors. The official language is English, although the constitution says that any other language may be used as a medium of instruction in schools or other educational institutions or a legislative, administrative, or judicial purposes as may be required by law. But this also be implemented, and the problem with education in Uganda, as I mentioned a little while, is that because Uganda is actually adopting an extreme form of capitalism, and that simply means the kind of economic system in Uganda being capitalism is an extreme marketized version. And like I said again and again, education is suffering, healthcare is suffering, and the primary source of problem is actually because of privatization, which actually sort of the energy, like electricity companies are sort of, all the other infrastructure to help people are actually sort of. I've been talking about this thing over and over, and I will continue to remind people because it's so central to the problem of the cost of living. The cost of living is so central to the problem of the world, especially at a one-piece context. Uganda, a central region-based language, is widely spoken across the central and southeastern regions of the country, and several other languages are also spoken, including Atesu, Lango, Acholi, Runyoro, Runyankole, Rokiga, Luo, Rotoro, Somalia, Jopedola, and Lusoka. Acholi is actually part of Luo in Uganda. Acholi is the second biggest Luo community in northern Uganda and southern Uganda. The biggest Luo community is actually in Kenya. But because we came from the Luo people, I am a Luo person, and actually from Uganda, the Luo person, and we came from the north, and so we were left behind when the Kenyan Luo went to Kenya. But see, over time, I think the Kenyan Luo and also the Acholi Luo in Uganda and other parts of the world intermarried with different people, and now the identity of Luo is being modified accordingly in Uganda and also in Kenya. In 2005, Swahili, which is foreign and is viewed as being neutral, was proposed as Uganda's second official language, but this has yet to be ratified by Parliament. However, in 2022, Uganda decided to make Swahili a mandatory subject in the school curriculum. Uganda's current president is Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who took power in January 1986 after a protracted 6-year guerrilla war. The 6-year guerrilla war was actually prosecuted by Yoweri Museveni in a long-drawn guerrilla warfare, and that created a lot of problems in Uganda. Uganda's following constitutional amendments that removed term limits for the president, he was able to stand and was re-elected president in 2021, 2016, and 2021 general elections. The situation in Uganda is such that Mr. Museveni will always win the election. And a lot of people after have accused the government of rigging the election for the president. and it's not easy. It's not difficult for people to really understand why people are complaining of rigging elections in Uganda. But there's probably no evidence to prove that Mr. Museveni we have been rigging elections. All we know is that the president has overstayed in power. All I know is that President Museveni is against overstaying in power under any circumstances. But a man has the right to change his mind. So when Mr. Museveni got into power through a military coup, he decided to change his mind against the principle of continuity and change, where leaders come, leaders go. But you see, Mr. Museveni will go sooner or later because his age will determine how long he stays in power. Election may occur, but election in Uganda is symbolic. If anyone has had hope of change of regime anytime soon through election, then they should think again, because evidence and proof that Museveni, for one reason or another, have remained in power. Every time there is an election, he will remain in power. He is not going to go anywhere. And the only question to ask with or without election, with or without democracy in Uganda is, when Museveni dies in power, he's going to be buried and laid to rest. We are going to mourn our president. And after the funeral, what is going to happen in Uganda? Who will replace him? Although there are other rumors of his son, I think he's Kainerugaba Kainerugaba, I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He is the first son of Uganda, and there is a rumor that his father is actually preparing him to take over to become president of Uganda after him. And people are talking about it. Some other opponents and maybe some allies are also complaining about it. But I'm not really concerned about it at all. My only concern about Uganda is that when Museveni dies, which he will die, and when I say die, I'm going to say when he leaves power, because he is already dead. What are we going to do as Uganda? Because when we ask Mr. President now, why are you still in power? He says the Ugandan wants me to be in power. So what will Uganda? Uganda wants Museveni to be in power. What are Ugandans going to do when Museveni dies? You may want something, but you may not have it. So Ugandans may want Museveni now, but they should start thinking, when he dies, what are you going to do? Because you are the one keeping him in power. I personally would have thought that somebody else should take over now when he is still alive, so that he begin to support whoever takes over from him. If it is his son, let him at least take over now, and instead of when he is already dead. Because my fundamental fear is a political crisis, which I said in the beginning that Uganda, like a military coup, is a very dangerous thing for the country. And Museveni has solved that problem by his management of the politics of Uganda, and also his capacity to win election in court. Because I believe it is really almost superhuman for one person to stay in power for nearly 40 years, winning every election. And after Museveni, I believe we are not going to find somebody as brilliant as Mr. Museveni at winning national elections. Maybe his son Mohuzi, if he takes over from his father, maybe he will also have the magic wand of his father and the capacity to stay in power for that long. We will wait and see. I am all for political stability, but if his son can do better than his father to improve the economy of Uganda, especially the mode of running Uganda. And this is a predicament not just in Uganda, but a predicament found in Africa, and where the incident of capitalism is creating issues like the cost of living crisis, which in Uganda and Africa the government is doing next to nothing to address it. And my video would propose to Uganda and Africa and the developed world to help Uganda build the rebuild the public sector to take away Africa, Uganda, and the rest of the world out of poverty. Because this is a global issue in Uganda, Africa, and around the world. That the majority of the population, because of capitalism, are languishing in poverty. Poverty is a form of violence. Whether it is happening in Uganda, Africa, or the rest of the globe, it is a form of violence by the state to keep people, for one reason or another, in poverty. The majority, the 90%, the 95%, there is a consistently running across the globe from Uganda in this case, and Africa, and across the globe. And this problem will not go away. And the people of Uganda, East Africa, and Africa, the people of the world should take a look and begin the process of actually working with the governments of the world, including the ones in Uganda, to find a way to use the public sector to start producing a poverty eradication mechanism. Producing growth and wealth alone as pain, because you see, capitalism by default has a tendency, as a nasty tendency, of concentrating wealth in the hands of the few and not the many. In Uganda, as it is rumored, Museveni has never said, talk of himself as being a multi-billionaire, but statistics from the internet, I saw it from the internet, show that Mr. President is worth 13 billion US dollars. If that is true, he can actually use the interest from his wealth to try to help orphans, to set up an NGO, to do something in Uganda, and talk to his fellow rich Ugandans, Africans, East Africans, and his wealthy friends abroad to try to help Uganda and help Africa out of poverty using their private money. Talk to Jeff Bezos in America, talk to Elon Musk in America, Bill Gates in America. Ask them to give some money to Uganda, East Africa, and Africa to get Africans, get Uganda out of poverty first. Because the poverty in Africa is now comparable to the rest of the world. It's the worst of the worst, especially in Uganda. And if that once that is done, once poverty, is eradicated, when I talk about poverty, I'm not meaning people who get out of poverty are necessarily going to be rich. I'm not talking about wealth, getting people into wealth. I want to talk about getting people out of poverty, because if people are out of poverty, the cost of living crisis will not be there. So the solving of the cost of living is actually literally to get out of poverty, and only the government can do that, because the government, such as of Uganda, is set to run the country for the people of the country. And presidents like Museveni should stop pretending that he is running the country for himself and his family. Something he said on the social media, he said wherever he said them. I think Mr. President should stop and start thinking more intelligently. He is a very knowledgeable man. He's a very wise man. He has got, he has been in the office for so long, and a man like him, His Excellency Mr. Museveni, should stop pretending that he's not a public servant. The president of any country, it doesn't matter how arrogant, how proud he might be, how invincible he thinks. Do yourself a favor, Mr. President, and start being a good public servant. President of a country is a public servant, and that should be your source of pride to someone like you. And you can behave like an emperor, and you have earned your right to behave like somebody who is invincible. You have been in power for over 30 years. But you see, when it comes to the cost of living crisis, it relates to poverty. And if you sit there in your office, and this message is for any African leaders, whether you have been there for 5 days or for only a year, it is the same with somebody who has stayed there maybe for 100 years. the same. You run the country on behalf of the people, because you see, that's what the function of the government is. Any president who thinks otherwise should step aside, including Mr. Museveni. If you think you're not running Uganda for Ugandans, and you're just running the country for yourself, I mean, what are you doing being president? I mean, do you think Uganda is your personal asset? No, it is not. And this is information for every president in Kenya, Tanzania, and the rest of Africa, and also in Europe, because there are people in Europe who think they are born to rule. You may be born to rule, but you are born to rule on behalf of the people. Uganda is for the people, and it's not your private asset. If you think it is your private asset, let us know, so that we know how to respond, because you are wrong. If Uganda is your private asset, as Mr. Museveni, the president, and your first family, and the people of the LRM regime, then where should the rest of Uganda go? Let us know, so that we can leave Uganda and go somewhere else to live there. Because if you are running the country for yourself and for your family, like you said elsewhere, then Uganda should shut down. You turn it into a private company, private business, and the people of Uganda can migrate, maybe in Kenya, into Tanzania, or the rest of Africa. We can leave Uganda because we are excluded. We are no longer citizens, because our government is serving itself. The political party is serving itself, the first family, and serving the party members, and not thinking at all about the people of Uganda. And sometimes, if we are aides of state, we need to really watch what we say. Sometimes, speaking without thinking properly is a major offense. Well, I would say to presidents like Mr. Museveni and the rest of any African president, or the rest of any president across the globe, is that watch your mouth and learn some culture. You have to value the life of people. I'm not really taking on the Ugandan authority or African authority or any other one country. Every country in the world, you need to work together. You have to learn your cultural precepts and your cultural valuing, prioritizing the life of people. You cannot be rich and worth maybe 30 billion US dollar. You're just one man concentrating this wealth into his hands, and his wife is worth 0.7 billion US dollar. And these two are actually, I don't know what they're using the money for. And this is a situation replicated almost across Africa. There are other multimillionaires or multi-billionaires. This is across not just in Africa, but in Europe, America, and across the globe. And the single factor responsible for this form of violence, if I may say, political violence, is capitalism. Capitalism is the problem. Capitalism, which is running riot, including especially in Europe and America, which is running riot now even in other parts of the world, because capitalism has the same fingerprinting, wherever it is, whether in China or in Africa or wherever. You see, the only thing to bring sanity, a political and economic sanity into capitalism, is to actually for the government to intervene with the public sector. Now there is a kind of madness among global leaders. All of them, they have decided to shut down the public sector. Now that's the kind of insanity which produces effect such as the cost of living crisis, and that is actually my focus in discussing these videos and in these issues in this video. And people who are watching this video need to take this matter very seriously. If you don't want to take it seriously, that is your problem, and you are going to be an irrelevance. I need only one or two people to understand what I'm saying, because after understanding what I'm saying, we can actually start working together to bring changes, because our life matters. Our lives matter in every country, in Uganda, East Africa, in Africa, across the globe. The human life matters. That is a form of cultural evidence. It's evidence of a form of cultural enlightenment. Something I've been trying to talk about. I've been trying to talk about cultural enlightenment. That every citizen of the world should take control of their life begin to run their life. If you have a business, manage it effectively. Learn as much as possible. Use the internet and technology to learn as much as possible. Your life is in your hands. If politicians are not helping, don't worry about them. And just focus on getting out of poverty. And then if you're lucky, you can get into affluence. I'm grateful to the YouTube channel and YouTube economy, to Google. I'm grateful to Google for allowing us opportunity, TikTok, and all these other infrastructures, which is allowing especially young people to pick up an opportunity to get out of poverty and to get hopefully into affluence, becoming rich. But my message to young people, especially whether you are rich or poor, you need to learn your culture, value humanity first in everything you do. And this is the central purpose of my YouTube channel, and I will not deviate from it. It doesn't matter whether it is very popular or very unpopular. With time, whether it grows or it doesn't grow, I will be, as long as I'm still speaking, I will be speaking the same thing. As long as YouTube is giving me an opportunity, and I'm so grateful for YouTube and Google. But also it reminds me that as an African, because Google is not an African platform, it's not an African technology, it's not really an infrastructure. Because Africa is a continent, you can actually create its own an equivalence of Google or even YouTube, such as China has done with TikTok and all the rest of it. These are the kind of discussion I would be interested going forward. If you are interested in this kind of topic, feel free to leave a comment below. If you feel like just watching the video, watch the video. If you feel to do something else, please feel free to do something else. And I'm about to stop this conversation in a second, but let us briefly look at the history of Uganda. And in this article, we look at the pre-colonial period when the British colonized Africa. When the British colonized Africa, it was the beginning of the settling of the capital in Africa. And this actually created a modern type of state and government where wealth is managed by a centralized form of government. And with globalization, this phenomenon is going global, which is a good thing because capitalism is good for creating wealth and producing factors such as technology, including Google and YouTube, TikTok. And we are grateful for that, for the system, the brilliant brain which created capitalism. The brilliant brain fails on the front of culture because we need a government intervention with the public sectoral system to provide public services to get poor people out of the poor majority, over 95% out of poverty, and then support them also to get rich. I'm not talking about rich wealth because I know under capitalism it's almost impossible to get rich, for everyone to get rich because of the structure of the economic system. Unless we change the very structure, which actually to change that we need to destroy capitalism and replace it with a different economic system. So our expectation needs to be managed. What we can do under capitalism is get people out of poverty, and we can do that with technology, with science, with engineering, with many things. But for now, we need to really mitigate the incident, the almost violent effect of capitalism by strengthening the public sector, especially in Africa and in Uganda, but also in the developed world, because there are so many poor people in the developed world. And I will keep repeating this point. And if you think I'm doing the right thing by repeating the same point over and over again, leave a comment below. If you think I am not doing the right thing by repeating the same point over and over, leave a comment below also, and let us have a conversation. So the Caesarean section performed by indigenous healers in Kaura in the kingdom of Uganda, present-day Uganda, is observed. So these are complementary medicine by medical missionary report William Felkin in 1879. Much of Uganda was inhabited by Central Sudanic and Koliak-speaking farmers and others until 3,000 years ago when Bantu speakers arrived in the south and Nilotic speakers arrived in the northeast. By 1500 AD, they had all been assimilated into Bantu-speaking cultures south of Mount Elgon, the Nile River, and Lake Kyoga. According to oral tradition and archaeological studies, the empire of Kitara covered an important part of the Great Lake area from northern Lake Albert to Kyoga to the southern Lake Victoria of Tanganyika. The Bunyoro Kitara is claimed as the antecedent of the Toro, Ankole, and Busoga kingdom. Wrong. Bunyoro Kitara was actually Bunyoro kingdom. It had nothing to do with Ankole. Ankole was not part of it. Toro was not part of it. Busoga was not part of it. Bunyoro Kitara was actually a Bunyoro kingdom, which was actually created by the Luo people, group of people, the Nilotics. The Luo people created the Bunyoro Kitara, which was actually the most powerful at that time before Bunyoro. Also, Prince Khmer also left Bunyoro Kitara, who was a Luo prince, living in Bunyoro Kitara, to go and form the modern day Buganda kingdom. So the Luo people are responsible for Bunyoro Kitara and also the modern day Buganda kingdom. And also for Busoga and Toro. Actually, the current king of Toro still carries the name of Acholi. King Oyo. Oyo is an Acholi language, means born by wayside. King Oyo in Acholi would have been born by the wayside because the road or pathways means Yo in Acholi, in Luo, and which means these people, including Buganda, Bunyoro, are actually, most of the royal blood are actually Luo blood. So the history need to be clarified. Ankole was not part of it. Toro and Busoga were part of it in terms of Luo influence. Some Luo invaded the area of Bunyoro and assimilated with the Bantu society there, established the Babito dynasty of the current Omukama ruler of Bunyoro Kitara. So that is the story. Babito actually originates from Acholi, probably an adulterated version of an Acholi language, because Bito means persuading. And probably the Luo cultural group, including the Acholi people, were persuasive. So they decided to name that Babito dynasty. So the Mukama Bunyoro Kitara actually is an Acholi language and an Acholi, common Acholi and Luo name to this day. It means the bearer of light. The one who has light, or the bearer of light. Arab traders moved into the land from the Indian Ocean coast of East Africa in the 1830s for trade and commerce. In the late 1860s, Bunyoro in mid-western Uganda found itself threatened from the north by Egyptian-sponsored agents. Unlike the Arab traders from the East African coast who sought trade, these agents were promoting foreign conquest. In 1869, Khedive Ismail Pasha of Egypt, speaking to annex the territories north of the borders of Lake Victoria and east of Lake Albert and south of Gondokoro, sent a British explorer, Samuel Baker, on a military expedition to the frontiers of northern Uganda with the objective of suppressing the slave trade there and opening the way to commerce and civilization. With Bunyoro assisted Baker, who had to fight to a desperate battle to secure his retreat. Baker regarded the resistance as an act of treachery, and he denounced the Bunyoro in a book, Ismailia, a narrative of the expedition to the Central Central Africa for the suppression of slave trade, organized by Ismail Khedive of Egypt, 1874. That was widely read in Britain. Later, the British arrived in Uganda with a predisposition against the kingdom of Bunyoro and sided with the kingdom of Uganda. This would eventually cost Bunyoro half of its territory, which was given to Buganda as a reward from the British. Two of the numerous lost counties were restored to Bunyoro after independence. In the 1960s, while Arabs showed influence from the north, British explorers searching for the source of the Nile arrived in Uganda. They were followed by British Anglican missionaries who arrived in the Kingdom of Uganda in 1877 and French Catholic missionaries in 1879. This situation gave rise to the death of the Ugandan martyrs in 1884 after the conversion of Mutesa the first and March of his court and the succession of his anti-Christian son Mwanga. The British government chartered the Imperial British East African Company IBEA to negotiate trade agreements in the region beginning in 1888. From 1886, there was a series of religious wars in Uganda, initially between Muslims and Christians, and then from 1890 between engaged the Protestant and Franca Catholic faction named after the imperial powers with which they were aligned. Because of civil unrest and financial burden, IBEA claimed that it was unable to maintain their occupation in the region. British commercial interests were urgent to protect trade routes in the Nile, while prompted the British government to annex Uganda and adjoining territories to create the Uganda Protectorate in 1894. Uganda Protectorate between 1894 to 1962, main article Protectorate, the flag of the Uganda Protectorate, which is partly a combination of the British flag, mainly the British flag actually overshadowing that of Uganda. Uganda was actually a tiny piece of the Ugandan flag. The Protectorate of Uganda was a protectorate of the British Empire between 1894 to 1962. Remember, 1962 was when Uganda got our independence from Britain. In 1893, the Imperial British East African Company transferred its administrative rights of territory consisting mainly of the Kingdom of Uganda to the British government. The IBEA relinquished its control over Uganda after Ugandan internal religious wars had driven it into bankruptcy. Today, when private companies fail their bailout, the system hasn't changed. We look at the credit crunch in 2007 and 2008. If you look at the rest of the video on credit crunch, global financial crisis, the shape. In 1894, the Uganda Protectorate was established and the territory was extended beyond the borders of Uganda by signing more treaties with the other kingdom, Toro in 1901, Kole in 1901, and Bunyoro in 1933 to an area that roughly corresponds to that of the present-day Uganda. The status of protectorate significantly different consequences for Uganda than the region being made a colony like in neighboring Kenya, insofar as Uganda retained a degree of self-governance that otherwise being limited under its own colonial administration. In the 1890s, 32,000 laborers from British India were recruited to East Africa under indentured labor contract to construct the Uganda Railway. Most of the surviving Indians returned home, but 6,724 decided to remain in East Africa after the line's completion. Subsequently, some became traders and took control of cotton ginning and Satoro retail. They were actually retailers doing small and medium businesses in Uganda. Some of them actually were also involved in big commercial corporations. From 1900 to 1920, a sleeping sickness epidemic in the southern part of Uganda along the north shores of Lake Victoria killed more than 250,000 people. There were mysterious diseases then and still now in Uganda associated with colonialism and also contact with outsiders. World War II encouraged the colonial administration of Uganda to recruit 77,143 soldiers to serve in the King's African Rifles. They were seen in action in the Western Desert Campaign, the Abyssinia Campaign, the Battle of Madagascar, and Burma Campaign. We are going to stop here, and next time we meet, we are going to talk about the independence of Uganda from Britain between 1962 to 1965. And thank you for watching this video. If you have watched up to now, I'm so grateful. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed. Click the notification bell to alert yourself for a new video, and click like, share with family and friends, leave a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Thank you. Bye bye. See you soon. Bye.